Hello and welcome to this week's edition of the Ed Block CourageCast. Oh my. We spent all summer wondering what it would be like, wishing we had it back in our lives, and it's here. And it was glorious. What a week one in the NFL it was. We will talk about it all here in this podcast. We have a great guest, former Ed Block Courage Award recipient. You might know the voice very well. He was on the NFL Today. Is on WFAN in the mornings. You can watch his show on CBS Sports Network. Boomer Esiason joins the program later in the pod. You'll hear that interview that Brett got to sit down and do with him earlier today. We got a lot of week one NFL takeaways to talk about. I am your host, Dave Steinwedel. I'm joined by two former players. Former Ed Block Courage Award recipient with the Baltimore Ravens. It's a tough week in Baltimore. Wally Williams, great to see you, sir. How are you?
Awesome, man. Hey, great week. And I tell you, I know we'll get into it later on as we, proceed here, but that Baltimore game, man, the Ravens against the Bills.
Top five all time?
I'm gonna just pose it out there. Was that the worst loss in Ravens history?
Ooh. We'll circle back to that.
We'll save that save repeat.
Let's get to our other co-host this week, former NFL defensive lineman with the Bengals, Vikings, and the Chiefs. I think he's struggling a little bit. His Chiefs didn't look great down there in Brazil. Duane Clemons.
Hey, this is where we learn to manage our emotions.
Short and sweet. I like it. Okay, that's fair, very fair. So where do you guys want to start? What is your biggest takeaway from week one, DC?
Well, I feel like we got to start with the most exciting game of the season so far. I mean, Buffalo, Ravens, that was a game of games. I mean, for that to be the week one, it's like, wow, I don't know where you like, wow, where do you go next week from that in such a, that's what football's all about, right? You get beat on, it's like that was that Rocky Balboa. You took left, right, left, hook, jab, gut punch after gut punch, and you were down on one knee, and then somehow you rose from the ashes and snatched victory from defeat. So it's gut wrenching that Baltimore had to go through that, and it just seems like every year there's some critical point in the game, especially when the game's on the line, that they find a way, whether it's a stupid penalty, whether it's a drop pass, whether it's a fumble, whether it's a missed tackle on the defense. It just seems like in the biggest moments they let that moment slip away when it's right there. Sorry, Wally. What do you guys say, man?
No, man. I'm with you, DC. I'm right there with you. We've seen this happen a number of times. From our Ravens here the last 3, 4, probably 5 years. We've had opportunities in playing big games and to kind of be that team that is on the cusp of winning the championship and see if we can get over that hump. I parallel this to a lot of the championship teams we've seen kind of grind it out before they get over that hump there. And see, like heard about the Chicago Bulls that they lost so many years, they had to get over the Pistons, and they finally got over that hump, to win some championships. I think the Ravens have been there for a while. We just have not gotten over that hump to make those big plays and those big times and those big games. We saw this against KC a couple of years ago. We saw this against Buffalo last year. The year before, I think that the Titans ran us out of there. So we've seen this happen over the last couple of years. We're just asking this question: can the Ravens win that game or beat that team to get them to a championship caliber and get into a Super Bowl? And just so far, man, we don't know. We have not seen it. The roster is loaded, okay, but Dave, we just don't know if they can win in that big moment, that big game.
I would agree. I think now I'm a little backed off on this take personally. when it comes to this game, because to me there were a lot of things that as I watched, and let me just say, as the non-player, because apparently that's a big thing now in sports media, the non-player here, remember that, I didn't play in the league. One, you're seeing the effect of not playing guys in the preseason, because the Ravens were two different teams in that ball game. The first half, they were physical, they were aggressive, they were flying all over the field making plays. In the second half, what'd you see? I don't know about you, Wally. I saw a tired, I saw a lethargic, I saw a gassed football team because they hadn't played in the preseason. They hadn't gotten their bodies built up, particularly that defense. And again, what gets lost in how bad the defense was, Buffalo ran 85 plays. You guys know it as players. That's a lot of freaking plays on your body.
Wow.
And to have to do that right out of the gate week one, that's tough. There's just a war of attrition that's going to happen, and that's what the Raven defense looked like. So that's number one. Number two, look, if I'm going to be critical of John Harbaugh, the criticism is they get too relaxed when they get up late in games. We've known this. We've seen it. They don't have the killer instinct. They're never going to have the killer instinct. That's just this coaching staff, and we need to just the fans need to just accept this is not a team that they get up big and is going to put the foot on the throat. They just aren't. I don't know why.
Both of those are coaching issues, right?
Absolutely. There's absolutely are both coaching issues, and there's nothing that I'm going to say here that I think is anything other than coaching issues. I don't think there's anything with this Raven team that makes me sit there and go, they're not a Super Bowl team. They absolutely are a Super Bowl team. But the other thing that I will say about this game, that if you really get the game, and you guys probably saw it as much as I did, the Ravens played a very sloppy good game. They made a lot of mistakes. The special teams wasn't great. They had a couple fumbles that they got away with. Lamar made a couple bad decisions, took some really big negatives. Like, I kept watching this game going, all right, it's great the Ravens are getting out to this lead. It's great they're handling the ball. But they're one or two mistakes away from Buffalo winning this football game. Even when they were up 2 scores, I thought, okay, they're like, this team's is so close to making that critical mistake. And it happened. Tyler Loop misses the field goal off the upright. The extra point. I'm sorry.
Hey, hold on. With three under 4 minutes left, okay, in the fourth quarter, up by 15. I mean, you did not have any, ill feelings to think that Buffalo was going to come back and win the game. At that time, I thought, you're one first down away from this thing being over. So,
but what happened? Like, you get a mistake.
Yes, that's what ended up happening. Yes.
And there was the bigger prevailing thought for me during that game was, all right, they keep the foot on the pedal, yeah, they can win this game. The minute they took it off, they get sloppy. So that was my thing, is I kept going, and at the end of the day, we're all overreacting. Buffalo's a good team. There's not a single one of us that wouldn't sit there and say Buffalo's just as much a Super Bowl contender as the Ravens. You can't make the mistakes the Ravens did, and I don't care what your lead is. I don't care how much time's left in the game. You can't make those mistakes and expect to win in the National Football League. Plain and simple. And they did, and they lost. So to me, it's sad, it's frustrating as a Raven fan, but it's not shocking.
Do you feel that week one they stepped up and established themselves as the badasses of the AFC after that?
The Bills or the Ravens?
The Bills.
I think the Bills have stepped up to being the badasses of the AFC right now.
Yes.
After that performance and look, you got to understand where Josh Allen is right now. He's coming off MVP season, all those things like that, and hey, he's taken over a little bit of the hype. Well, I can say a little bit, a lot of the hype that came out of KC. Okay, with that quarterback situation and that whole thing. And not saying that, Patrick hasn't fell off, not saying that. It's just that I think Josh Allen his star has risen, and he has really elevated to that point.
Absolutely. For somebody who hasn't really did it all the way, I mean, he gets a lot of the league's attention, and I feel like he's everybody's real favorite now that everybody's kind of gotten fatigued of the red kingdom.
Now the transition into what that was on Sunday night to see what we saw on Monday night and the arrival of J.J. McCarthy and how that game went from half to half. You're talking about the first half of that game, and Minnesota was a non-factor. The second half, he comes up and they get a fire. He throws 2 quick touchdown passes and runs for one, and really, I mean, the Bears had no answer, for anything he was doing. Is it the quarterback? Is it the offensive coordinator? I mean, what did you guys see in that Monday night game that had that metamorphosis that we saw in the second half of what the Vikings put together?
I thought personally, DC, you probably thought differently. I just saw Kevin O'Connell looked at J.J. McCarthy and said, stop trying to be Superman and just be yourself. Like, take what the defense is giving you. You don't have to sit there and try to be the guy that elevates everybody else. You've got the talent. I mean, that's a great offense that Minnesota has. It's a decent offensive line. We know about T.J. Hawkinson. They've got great receivers on the outside with Jefferson, and you have Thielen. They don't have Jordan Addison right now because of the 3-game suspension. Like, you have Aaron Jones in the backfield. That is a great offense. And I thought in the first half that there was a little bit watching J.J. McCarthy of I'm pressing. I'm trying to make the big play happen. And I do think Kevin O'Connell looked at him and just said, hey, we don't need you to be Superman. Just make the plays, make the throws when we need you to make them. And that's what he did in the second half. He had the great ball up the sideline to Aaron Jones. He hit Justin Jefferson over the middle. Like, he got the ball to the playmakers and let them make plays at the end of the day.
I totally agree with you, Dave. And for this situation, I mean, it's week 1. It's your first shot at it. So, I think you expect him to come out there and have some rough patches, and the fact that he's able to recover and show that grit to be able to hang in there through the tough drives and then come back and find a way to get himself established. I think that's just going to pay dividends week after week. You need to see that he's going to grow from that, and I think that confidence is going to be really contagious. You're going to see that spread throughout that team. So I think that team made the right decision and putting it in his hands. And it's okay to have a couple of rough quarters, but so long as you learn how to finish, and I think he's showing that he's going to finish. He's going to stay in the fight. And I think that's what his teammates are ultimately going to rally around him and elevate him.
And what now feels like a wide open NFC North, by the way.
Because we gotta talk about Green Bay.
Well, I was going to say, what was your bigger takeaway from that Lions-Packers game? Because right now, the knock again is on Detroit. And Wally, I know you're waiting for me to make my Lions defense here.
I'm waiting.
And I'm going to go right back to what I said about the Ravens when it comes to the Lions. None of the talent is gone on that Lions team. The defense is not nearly as good. I will admit that, we'll tell you that. But it is really hard when you don't play in the preseason and you have 2 new coordinators to hit the ground running and look like a well-oiled machine. And that was exactly what the Lions looked like in week 1. They just looked out of sorts, out of rhythm. They never got really into a rhythm. And it looked like a team that had 2 new coordinators calling it. But to me, the bigger story is if that Packer defense can play as well as it did and stay healthy over the course of the season, Green Bay might be as good, if not better, than Philadelphia by the end of the year.
I mean, look, you remember a couple of years ago, and I think I remember saying this, Ed Block, one of our award winners that from the Cowboys. I forget that guy's name with the Cowboys, but I said, you guys haven't stopped the Packers from running the damn ball all day. If we were still playing, they just scored another touchdown. Okay, that Packers game, and you got some of the same cast of characters there. The fundamentals of it are in place. I mean, Love was the quarterback. I think we had different running back. Um, uh, you're not saying running back, but we have a better running back now with uh, Jacob. This is Jones back there playing quarterback now. What's our guy named playing running back there starting for the Packers?
Josh Jacobs.
Josh Jacobs.
Yeah,
Couldn't get that out. So it's a better quality running game that the Packers have. And this was the team that actually scored almost 50 points on Dallas a couple of years ago in the playoffs. So you're adding something now to that defense and bringing Micah Parsons there to that defense. And if you watch that game, I mean, it was all hype, okay? And he stepped up to the mic. He stepped up and that hype was real in Green Bay about that defense, the impact that they are saying. I don't know, but is this the most impactful free agent move and comparable to Reggie White coming to Green Bay? I mean, is that what this is? Because if that's what this is, then, well, the Packers have become the face of the NFC North. I mean, that's just what this is going to be if we're making that parallel, because we know what happened to the Packers and to that team once Reggie White got there. And look, it looked every bit as a defensive juggernaut, okay, on Sunday. And look, the Detroit didn't have an answer, okay? And if that's how the Packers are going to play defense, then that is a high alert for the rest of the NFL and what those guys are going to be able to put together over there.
I think the Packers and Philly are now the two premier NFC teams. I mean, because the bottom line is he's not even in playing shape. He didn't get, his camp. So he's going to get better and better. And as explosive as he looked, obviously he had fresh legs. And we all know what the fresh legs look like, boy. You get out there with the fresh legs. But, I mean, this dude is going to be scary. And with all those pieces around him, I don't think he's ever had a whole team and a whole defense. And the fact that now he's going to have weather on his side, because we already know when it comes to December and in January, if they can get that home field advantage and you got to come to the frozen tundra, that's a team that's scary. Nobody wants to come out there if they can figure out how to win 13, 14 games. I don't think Philly want to see them on that snow, because it's a different animal when you have to brush out there in the outside playing in that cold.
Speaking of teams that didn't look great there.
Yeah.
Miami.
Ooh.
Are we looking at some week 4 firings possibly already in that week 4 window of okay?
I mean that has to be a hot seat game. That had to be a hot seat game right there.
Just before we really dive into this, though, keep in mind Miami's bye is not till week 12, so it's not like they have an early bye to if they want to wait until the bye week. Like, it's just, I mean,
they don't get better in December.
Hey, Alec, you listen to us. Hey, we need to know what's going on down there at the Dolphins, baby. We need to hear your voice. All right, let us know what's happening. We think it's imploding.
Well, you know what? Let's not take it all away from maybe they just had a bad bowel movement. They just maybe they just need an extra week to really just get themselves together. They just had to clean their guts out this week and let it be known that okay, we can but they still got too much talent to look
that bad. To look that bad. Like
they were disrespected by a very mediocre team. I mean, come on.
Well, but hey, maybe this is more predictable than we should have seen. Look, the offseason in Miami has been nothing but turmoil. Okay,
but that's true.
Tyreek Hill and his position and him and Tua not getting along and have to kind of re-engage their relationship to get back on the same page. Him not being voted team captain. I mean, those things are things that you heard about coming out of their camp all offseason. It's one camp in Dallas and what they talk about. It's one camp in Miami what comes out of that system and what they talk about. The Colts have been quiet as a church mouse. Okay, there's nothing to talk about there. All right, they
no distractions.
The biggest story that's been coming out of the Colts camp is that tight end, Warren. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
that's all you've heard about during the entire offseason about he's some kind of man child. Okay, so that's it. Okay, you're not supposed to get anything out of Daniel Jones at quarterback. Well, we know about Taylor at running back and all those things, but name a receiver. So it hasn't been kind of the promo of these guys taking advantage of anything in the AFC South. I think we were kind of blamed on our predictions on where the Colts would be. But for them to come out and mollywop the Dolphins like that, I think it says, more about the Dolphins and the disarray in their situation than actually about the Colts being a team that we can, put on the chart there as being a contender in the AFC South.
Dave, I got to ask you, as the non-player, are you looking at Tyreek Hill's life off the field and saying this is now bled into the team's life on the field, and now we have to cut this cancer out before we reach the point of no return?
I will say I do think it's fair to make that comment, make a argument that it is now starting to bleed. Like, it is a part of the issues that we're seeing with Miami. I think the other part is I don't think Tua has ever been right since he's come back. I
Yes.
like look, we need, like, that needs to be addressed and that needs to be talked about. He hasn't looked like the same quarterback since he's come back from the last couple of concussions. He never looks like he's in rhythm. He doesn't look very comfortable in the pocket. Like, that's part of it. The O-line has taken a little bit of a hit. Some guys have left in free agency. The defense has those names, but just not overall enough talent, I feel like, to be able to compete with the top teams in the AFC. And you never want to say that it looks like a coach has just lost a locker room, but you could kind of feel like that was starting to happen a little bit last year. And I don't know if Mike McDaniel got it back. I really don't.
Look, he came into this thing as some offensive guru. And that's the way the Dolphins started out. I mean, there you had Travis Hill. I mean, you had Tariq Hill. You had HN in the backfield, running up and down. Okay, it was almost looking like the greatest show on turf at one time. The offense was very explosive. That is gone. That is gone. And I think David hit it right on the head. That I think he has lost this team. I don't think. I think his time there is kind of wearing. And for this to have this kind of, internal problem that they've had, this thing just came right out of their camp, and basically has put a real cripple hold on the team right now. And it's been like that for quite some time. I don't think they can come out of this unless they make some kind of change eventually. So, look, he is the first coach that's on the hot seat right now after week one, officially a hot seat coach.
I want to bring this up because to me, this cannot, I don't think it's talked about. Remember, Vic Fangio, who went to Philadelphia and won a Super Bowl as a defensive coordinator, was the DC for 2 years in Miami. Miami had a top 10 defense, but remember, there were some rubs with some players down there.
Correct.
And Mike McDaniel made the move, and I don't think it's hard to sit there and make a correlation and say, this is sort of where things began to go awry for Miami.
That makes sense. I don't know if I've ever looked at Mike McDaniel and really felt like he had a great chance. You're already in the AFC. You got to deal with Buffalo, Baltimore, KC. And then you look at the caliber of coaches he's up against. He kind of always, reminded me of a guy that was he's going to give you some stats, and he has some really good flashy receivers. But I never really did see him as a threat in the AFC. And I think now, as those receivers have started to age a little bit and their lives have taken wear and tear, plus Miami's a hard city not to be distracted. I mean, that is a hard city, just like Las Vegas. There's certain cities, you got to have some different kind of players to be able to, keep your nose clean, keep your head focused on football, to be in that environment. It's not like Green Bay or Indianapolis where it's easy to go home because ain't much really popping. But I think time has caught up with him, and I think he's had enough chances. Unless they make a blockbuster trade, sort of like what Green Bay did, I don't see how he can save his job. But unless there's something that he can do to bring in some game changer that can get him over the top.
And we're saying this after the first week, okay? And even with this, look, I think our preseason pick was the Dolphins to finish maybe second in the AFC East to kind of catapult the Jets, and we don't know what the Patriots are going to be in there. We know where the Bills are going to be, but you can't put that second tier, second or third team in there in that slot in the AFC East. So we saw the Dolphins as a team of being there. But we're going to see how this thing is going to play out. I think they now, after that performance against the Colts, mind you, you know, getting throttled, what was that score? 33-8. Are the Dolphins going to tank here and move down to the bottom of that division? So we'll see the next couple of weeks. I think this story is an interesting story and it's going to play out here and see how they respond coming in week 2 and 3. If they don't respond coming out here next week, I think that problem grows bigger and bigger and bigger as we go.
By the way, how about the Jets? I mean, I know
Man, I'm so
everybody.
happy for Justin. Go ahead, man.
I was gonna say, I was really happy for Justin Fields because
Yeah,
I
this
thought he
guy.
got a raw deal in Pittsburgh with how all
Mhm.
of that played out. And really, I was happy for Aaron Glenn because, yeah, even though they lost, but that's Pittsburgh's first time you're seeing it with that offense. Not surprising, but really how well Justin Fields looked. He was in total command. He played with confidence. The ball was flying all over the place. This Jet team may end up surprising some people, I think.
This is
You
crazy.
got to see that you see that young man has grit. Anytime you can go 3-4 years of just getting kicked in the ding ding year after year by reporter, by coaches, by scouts, all over the place, man, and you can still hang in there, stand in that corner. I mean, walk in that locker room, hold your head up high, and really still find a way to believe in yourself, man. This guy is going to be special. I think he's finally found a place where, like, man, he's got a real chance. Now he's been through the fire, and now he's actually been hardened, and it takes that time to get seasoned and go through all that pain and energy. So now he can stand in that huddle, and he knows what it is to lose that job over and over again. So I think he's turned the corner, and I think it's going to be exciting to watch him elevate his game and actually start to elevate himself on the landscape of the NFL.
Well, let me ask you guys, Wally, and I'll let you respond here in a second because I'll ask it to you first. As ex players, how just important is it to hear from a coach in like Justin Fields' case? Hey, you're our guy. We believe in you so much. We're making you the starter. We're not bringing another guy in for competition. You're the guy because that's what it feels like the Jets have done. Wally, go ahead and just what do you make of that?
Well, look, you're already in a situation where it's very competitive and you're pressing. Okay, every player does, and you want to be in a place where you can play comfortably and not worry about the things other than you getting better. So when a coach or a staff gives you that kind of compliment, it gives you that kind of leeway, it allows you to relax and allows you to be a lot more expressive because now you're not worrying about, making the mistakes that can cost you your career, cost you your job. Listen, this is what I'm trying to tell you. As an undrafted free agent, well, there was never a time, okay, in my first maybe 4 or 5 years that I felt I had the leeway, okay, to make the mistakes until a coach came to me at some point and said, well, you're our guy, and we're going to give you the keys to the car to let this ship go. So you want that kind of acknowledgement from your coach that you're our guy. So go out there and do what you do because that has got us to this point, and we need you to be that kind of player. So every player is looking for that kind of space to where they are comfortable with what they do, what they bring to the table, and now the team is going to acclimate everything around that performance and keep going as a unit. So that's where Justin Fields needs to be. And to have that kind of confidence, I think you see that in his play and the way he performed on Sunday.
Dave, I think you see that, and that's kind of like the two different kind of coaches. Some coaches are the X's and O's guys. And then other coaches are the kind of guys that can reach into your soul and make you believe in you more than you believe in yourself. And that, those guys that can actually pull the best out of you. I think those are the special kind of coaches, and they're willing to jump in the frying pan with you, like taking a risk, saying like, listen, we're not bringing in a backup. I'm not looking for a plan B, C, D, E. And when somebody does that for you, I think that's the intangible. That's worth more than gold or the money. The fact that, like, man, we really in here together. I got a partner in this, and that's I mean, that's 90% of being success. If you have a coach that's actually in your corner, putting you in good positions, and is actually wants the best for you, it's hard not to succeed.
And on the flip side of that, I mean, in that game, you as impressive as you say you are with Justin Fields, I mean, I'm even more impressed with the way Aaron Rodgers played. I'll be 100 with you. I'm going to
Go
add him.
Bears.
I'm going to put him on my fantasy team this week. Okay. Nobody drafted him in I would say 80% of the leagues I was in. I'm going to add him back to my fantasy team. I mean, for him to come out, and if you watched that game and you saw the way Aaron Rodgers was moving and the way he was throwing the ball, it was a shot from back in the day now. Okay, he found the youth. What do you want to say about it? This was not the same Aaron Rodgers that came into the Jets. He looked good. He looked good. I'm going to add him back on my team, fellas. I'm telling you.
Forget your fantasy team. Are you going to put your money line? Is he going to be on your money line?
I need to see one more week, but I'm going to put him on my bench. That's for sure.
Dave, you putting paper on this? What you doing?
I'll say this about the Steelers. Impressive what Aaron Rodgers in that passing game was able to do. I'm a little hesitant with the Steeler run game because we know AFC North football, you're going to have to be able to run the ball. And the longer this goes into the season, we're going to be talking about a 41-year-old quarterback. Can he continue to maintain the level that he started the year at? And I don't know if the answer is yes. So when I think about that, I think Pittsburgh's going to have to get a better run game. It's going to have to get more consistent as the season goes on, because if it doesn't, that's where they're going to lose games.
I think that will come. I think the run game is one of the areas that starts off very slow. And it goes back to what you said earlier about not having, not playing preseason games. And offenses tend to start a little bit slower than defenses do. I think that's really the first, 2 or 3 weeks of the season. But I think that run game with Warren and Johnson, who's a rookie back there, I think it can mature. But if Rodgers can keep them at bay with his arm, okay, and that arm strip that we saw, Fountain of Youth, whatever we saw on Sunday stays there, the Steelers are a scary team anyway, okay? You can almost guarantee that they'll be at least 500. If Rodgers can steer maybe 3 or 4 wins their way, you're talking about a very, very competitive team, when it gets around playoff time. Can they win a playoff game? I don't know. But it'll be a thorn in your ass dealing with the Steelers, okay, in that second half of the season. It always is. A team that you just don't want to see because of that experience.
Now, what do you guys think? Being in a conference where every team is an outside team, when it comes down to those last, 8 or 9 weeks of the season, you got to be outside in Cleveland. You got to be outside in Cincy, outside in Baltimore. You got to be outside at home. Does that play into, like, man, them old bones, it's going to be a lot of cold days, and them hits feel a little bit harder when you out there shivering and you wet and you got that bone chilling cold racking through you. Do you think that's going to play effect in his age, Dave?
I think to an extent, because it's a different brand of football in the AFC North that you're just not accustomed to. The defenses hit harder. They're more aggressive. You've got to be able to take some of that weight off of him. I mean, he's going to look great early. I just wonder, can he sustain what he did week 1 over 17 games? And I'm not sure if that answer is yes. And that's the non-player in me watching it from the sideline. I don't know. Father Time is always undefeated.
Yeah, and that is the question. We've seen him do it before. Of course, he's been a league MVP 3 times, all those things. We've seen him accomplish these feats before. The challenges at that particular age. Is he up for the challenge? We've seen that challenge and seen somebody win at that age before. Okay, it's his turn. Is he
Yeah.
in that space to where he can be that kind of player at that age to maintain it? We'll see. The jury is still out on Aaron Rodgers, but so far so good in the start. To start the year off. I mean, he looked great and looked very healthy and looked somewhat, spry out there running around. He was like fresh
Well, you know
legs.
who look, you know who looked great? Myles Garrett looked scary great. If I was a quarterback in the AFC North, I would be like, "Good Lord, this man looked like he's trying to kill everybody."
Now, who's more impactful? Is Micah more impactful because you have one guy who actually shut down the entire Bengals offense?
Yeah,
That's pretty much what he did. So,
yeah.
which one of those guys are more disruptive right now? We know about the Micah contract, but at the end of the day, who is more menacing?
Well, Micah disrupts your entire week because you have no freaking clue. Is he going to be in a stack? Is he going to be on the left? Is he going to be on the right? Is he going to be inside? So you got to waste so much administrative energy dealing with all these scenarios versus Miles Garrett is just the simple fact that you know that your O can't stop their X. And it doesn't matter where you put him, that X is going to beat your O 9 times out of 10. So you're dealing with more of the reality. Once he lines up, hey, I need help for this guy. Whether it's the back, that's all you got to know. Once he lines up, hey, I need help. So you got to shift to him. So
All right, we have to wrap this up, unfortunately, because we got Boomer Esiason. We've delayed this long
boom,
enough.
boom.
Brett got to sit down a little earlier today, go one-on-one with Boomer Esiason. So the three of us are signing off. Don't go anywhere. You hear right now the entirety of the interview with Boomer Esiason. For DC, for Wally, I'm Dave Steinwedel. This has been the Ed Block CourageCast.
Welcome back to the Ed Block CourageCast. Brett Dickinson here with Boomer Esiason, 1988 MVP, 1989 Ed Block Courage Award winner. Boomer, thanks for taking a couple minutes with us.
It's my pleasure to see you, Brett. Thanks for having me on.
All right. Well, let's jump right into it. And I know we're talking a long time ago, but do you have any memories of when you were selected for the Ed Block Courage Award, being selected by your teammates, and kind of what that meant for you being in that locker room?
Well, yes, I do remember it was 1989. So this is, kind of like when I got involved in cystic fibrosis fundraising. This was well before my son Gunnar was born in 91, excuse me. I met a man by the name of Frank DeFord. Frank had lost his daughter, Alex, to cystic fibrosis. And I was at a dinner where I heard him speaking of this just horrific disease that I had never really heard about. And I went up to him after that dinner and I said, how can I help? And there were many fundraising opportunities in Cincinnati to get a part of Cincinnati Children's Hospital Cystic Fibrosis Pediatric Center was very big on my mind. So I did that. And I figured as a starting quarterback of a professional football team, you have a great platform. People were willing to listen to me. And I think my teammates recognized that. And I know that particular year changed my life significantly because I didn't really have anything in my life up to that point, like cystic fibrosis, to really fight for and to raise money for and to meet people who had the disease. And then lo and behold, 2 years later, in a twist of fate, my son Gunnar was actually born with the disease. So the Ed Block Courage Award was a symbol to me that whatever I was doing was recognized by the team, by my teammates, and knowing who Ed was, what he stood for, the fact that he was a Purple Heart recipient in World War II. My dad was a World War II veteran, spent 16 months in theater in Europe. I know that Ed Block was under General Patton, so there was a lot of synergy there and a lot of pride there, and something that I was very, very proud to receive.
Yeah, and you kind of hit on it. And then a lot of people see this award as something coming back from injury. Obviously, working with the athletic trainers, Ed Block being the athletic trainer for the Colts for all those
Yep.
years. But we always have these special stories that come up where it's somebody like you giving back or making an impact in the community. Why was that so important to you? Especially at a young age. You look back at it now, and you're a starting quarterback in the NFL, but you're still pretty young when it comes down to it. And why was it so important for you to be a part of that movement and kind of just engaging with the community and helping people?
It's interesting. So, growing up, my dad, as I said, was a World War II veteran. My mother died when I was 7, and I saw him raise 3 children by himself. And he was an incredible man. He had to commute to New York City 2 hours pretty much each way every single day. We lived about 50 miles outside of New York City, so he had to take the train into Lower Manhattan. He didn't make a lot of money, but he came back on the GI Bill. And I always felt like his service was something that I was extremely proud of. And, he was a Little League baseball coach. He volunteered for the local Lions Club. He was a part of Knights of Columbus. He was always doing something for somebody else. So I had the perfect mentor, if you will, in my life to show me how to try to live my life and try to give back and try to pay it forward. And I don't know what it is about meeting people like my dad and Frank DeFord and seeing these guys deal with the adversity that they had to deal with in their life, and then actually literally try to help others while they probably eschew the help for themselves. So I don't know. I've always had good mentors in my life. I've always felt like being a responsible human being was important, and especially being a man and being somebody that could handle adversity and deal with it hopefully the right way and help people that really, really needed that help. And lo and behold, if Frank DeFord never came in my life, I don't necessarily know that I would be sitting here today talking to you about everything that I was able to accomplish off the field as an NFL quarterback and a TV analyst. But I saw it firsthand, and I saw how powerful it was, and it really resonated with me. And I wanted to make sure that I was able to carry that along with me the rest of my career.
Yeah, and I remember the story when I was younger, hearing about Gunner and kind of that being all over the news and things like that. But looking back at those moments, you're full fledged. You're a quarterback in the NFL. We know what that takes out of your life and how much time you have to spend in the locker room. Talk about finding the time to make sure that Gunner was able to not only live a fulfilling life, but also now thriving, after you've already retired and he's out doing his thing. So,
Well, I was the football player. Gunner's mom, Cheryl, was the one that had the daily routine every single day with him. And when I was able to be with him, which was obviously in the off season when we weren't playing, I tried to create as many memories as I possibly could. The greatest thing that my dad left me, and my dad died in 1999 on Thanksgiving, oddly enough, and Thanksgiving will always have a different meaning to me simply because of that. But I remember sitting at my dad's funeral thinking about all the great memories that he and I had together. And a lot of them, didn't cost a lot of money. I mean, it might have been traveling to upstate New York for a vacation for 2 weeks, or playing baseball or catch when he came home, or going to Met games or Nick and Ranger games. Those are memories that I knew would last a lifetime for me. And I knew I wanted to be the same type of dad for Gunner. I wanted to be able to give him as many memories. And I was hoping that it wasn't going to have to be condensed, because he had a genetic disease where the average or median age of the patient at the time when he was diagnosed was like 19 or 20. We knew that there were new drugs to help the symptoms, so hopefully he would have lived longer. But by that time, maybe we would find something that would change his life significantly. So I just always felt like, I just needed to give him memories to hold on to, whether by bringing him to Super Bowls, bringing him to hockey games, putting him in ice hockey, letting him play football when he was in high school, all those different things that, dads share with their sons that I shared with my dad, that I wanted to share with him. And I think that resonated with Gunner too. I can speak to that today, now that he's 34 years old, and a major breakthrough happened in 2018 that changed his life forever to the positive. So now he is a father himself. He has his own son. They delivered a grandson 3.5 years ago, which is nothing short of a miracle. And he is a living miracle, I should say. And Gunnar is my hero. So, I mean, we have no other choice when you're confronted with a situation like this. And thinking back to Frank DeFord's words, thinking back to the way I was raised by my dad, I felt like, being I don't know, impactful in something other than just football was going to be a big part of my life. And certainly it has been.
Yeah, absolutely. As a father of two children at home, 8-year-old and 5-year-old boys, I've kind of lived by that mantra: is just make as many memories as possible and be as present as possible. I'm out on the fields, soccer, basketball, football, whatever it is, out coaching and just trying to be there with them. And I certainly appreciate that. And it's definitely an inspiration to hear you talk about that, knowing everything that your family had to go through as well. And you answered my next question on who your inspiration was, and obviously your dad, and you mentioned Frank DeFord. So let's jump into kind of your transition. I had a chance to talk with Kurt Warner a couple of weeks ago, talking about going from the NFL to being in sports broadcasting and things like that. And, what kind of difficulties did you go through, when you did transition initially to now be one of the most successful, past players to be still at it at this point?
The hardest thing in the television world is just being concise, being smart, being somewhat humorous and self-deprecating. But you also have to be, I always felt you also had to be critical when you need to be. Like when the game is on the line, if somebody makes a mistake, and I'm not talking about a physical mistake, it's more of a mental mistake. You have to be honest with the viewers, you have to be honest with the fans, and you try to be as objective as you possibly can. How do you not root for, especially when you first come out, how do you not root for players that you played with or coaches that you played under or teams that you played for? It's almost impossible. But nowadays, I think simply because of social media, there are a lot more critics today than there were way back when I started back in 1997. So I just think that, for me, the transition was a rough one initially because I only lasted 2 years on TV at ABC, got fired, went to Fox for a year, and then got to CBS and spent the next 22 years there. So I found my home. I think it was really important to find somewhere that I was more comfortable working with people I was more comfortable with, and they would bring out the best in me, and hopefully I would bring out the best for the shows that I worked on. And it was a transition that was hard, but I knew because my son at the age of 6 at this point, was dealing with cystic fibrosis, that football was going to take a lot away from him growing up at that point. So the retirement part of it at the age of 37 was a little bit easier for me. I could probably have played another year or two, and the Bengals did offer me a 2-year contract to continue, but I felt like that would take too much away from, Gunnar. And now I also had a daughter, Sydney, at the time as well. And I just think back to those days, no regrets retiring early, but just knowing that I could be definitely around so much more because of the TV schedule wasn't nearly as severe as playing football.
Yeah, and you look at some of these guys now, and you got Aaron Rodgers throwing 4 touchdown passes week 1 at 41 years old, Tom Brady winning a Super Bowl in his 40s. Do you think that was possible back then in the 90s, where you had these quarterbacks going into their 40s and still, playing at the top level? Or was it something where you saw like a drop off was coming sooner rather than later?
You know what, the thing in my era, the year before me and the year before that, the game was different. The rules were different. We took vicious hits. Many of us left with long-term injuries. I was fortunate enough to be one of those that didn't. I never had a surgery, never broke a bone, excuse me. So I feel very fortunate in that regard. But, the rules are different now. They changed them in the mid 2000s when Brady and Rivers and Manning were playing, and because they knew that those guys were the ultimate stars. That's who everybody wanted to see. And then you also had, Brett Favre and Troy Aikman, and you had all this group of players that, took us into the next wave of great quarterbacks that we're seeing today and the money that they're making. And there's nothing worse than going to a football game in the middle of the year and having that starting quarterback that you're paying $65 or $50 million to be sitting on the bench because he's hurt. That's the last thing that any of us want. So the rules needed to be modified in order to protect the position. So if we had those rules back when I played, and I know I sound like an old geezer, I think a lot of those guys from my era would have played into their 40s, because I think of guys like Jim Kelly and Phil Simms and Dan Marino and John Elway and Bernie Kosar. I mean, we all loved being quarterbacks. We loved it, and we loved playing for our teams. We had great relationships around the league with each of the guys, but not nearly as connected as the guys are today. And I think that had we not got as injured as we did, we probably would have been able to play within our 40s, especially if the money had risen to the level that it is now, because now there's all the reason more to play as long as you possibly can.
Right, absolutely, and then obviously advances in technology doesn't help, doesn't hurt either, with all the athletic training, and we get to work with the athletic trainers here across the league, and just seeing some of the things that they have in their rooms now was never existent back in the 80s and 90s. So, all right, before we transition, I'm going to throw you some curveballs at the from the kids at St. Vincent's Villa. They have a couple questions for you. Before that, though, obviously we're Baltimore-based, Maryland football legend. Can you just talk a little bit about the state of Maryland football, and where do you see that they can make the next jump? It's kind of one of those things where, they have a couple good years and then back down to a couple bad years. Like, how do they make that next jump? Knowing that the climate that we're in right now as well, in, the NIL and, basically paying players to transfer and do all those things. What do you see that Maryland football can do to kind of get back on track in college football?
I know we're only a couple games into his career, but this Malik, he looks great. But, if he is as good as we all think he is, don't you think somebody's going to come and steal him probably next year or the year after that? I mean, that's the real disheartening thing. Like, you develop players, and Mike Locksley does a great job of developing players. By the way, you ask a lot of coaches in the NFL about the Maryland players that come into the NFL. They're really prepared because he does such a good job. I mean, look, I think it's maybe a little bit more balanced right now with the way that they're using some of the money and sharing it with the players. I'm happy. I think that's a little bit more of an even playing field, because then it's really up to the coach to decide who he wants to pay and who he should be paying. I think it's really hard to win in the Big Ten. You got Ohio State, you got Michigan, you got USC now, you got Oregon, you got Washington. You have all these schools that, basically are well-funded sports-wise outside of the realm of just the money that they're making because of the conference that they're affiliated with. We have a very, very, and we've always had this problem. We've had probably the largest alumni base in all of college, and yet we also have the least amount of money that is donated to the sports program. And I don't necessarily know that anybody wants to donate money now anyway, given this whole new program and of sharing the revenues with the players. So, I mean, the last thing I want to do is write a $50,000 check to the University of Maryland so some 18-year-old can come and be developed and then leave next year. I mean, I'm not into that. So I hope that they can stay relatively competitive, meaning 8 to 9 wins and maybe a bowl game. And, that I think is something that's attainable. But to go for a national championship, when you look at some of the Power 4 conference schools and the amount of money and backing they have, I mean, you think of Texas, LSU, Alabama, Florida, like I said, Oregon, Washington, Michigan, Ohio State. I mean, these are multi-billion-dollar enterprises that our football program has got to go up against. And I don't necessarily know that Mike Locksley is going to have a legitimate chance to win year in and year out consistently 10 games. It's just almost going to be impossible.
All right. Let me throw you a couple hard questions. The children over at St. Vincent's gave this to us. So I asked some, and, some of them are kind of stumpers. So, all right, first one is, looking back at your playing career, who was that one guy that you saw on the schedule that you got most excited to play against? Whether it be in a DB, defensive lineman, who was that one guy that you kind of circled and said, oh man, I can't wait to get that game going week 3 or week 4?
For us, when I was in Cincinnati, our biggest rival by far was Cleveland, and it was the Battle of Ohio. And Marty Schottenheimer was the coach most of the time when I was playing in Cincinnati. And every time we would get the schedule for the preseason, you'd look at that game and you say, when are we playing those games? Because we played them twice every year. They were in our division. So it was the Cleveland Brown game, regardless of who, their quarterback was Bernie Kosar when I was playing for the most part. But their defense, I always knew was going to be really, really difficult. So I always knew that those games were going to be the most intense of all the games we played.
All right. And since being in the NFL, what has been your favorite thing that you've purchased? And, doesn't have to be anything NFL related, maybe something off the wall. We've heard some really, really interesting answers here, but what is the favorite thing that you've been able to buy yourself since you started your NFL career and now going into broadcasting?
I would say my vacation house in Bridgehampton, New York. It's
That's a good
something
one.
that I always wanted when I was a kid. So I grew up as a kid. My dad was, probably we made about $50,000 a year max, and I grew up in a 1-bedroom, a 3-bedroom, 1-bathroom house. I had 2 older sisters. Of course, my mom passed away when I was 7. So I grew up about 50 miles from what is known as the Hamptons on the east end of Long Island. And I would go out there with my buddies when I was in high school to the beaches. We have some of the greatest beaches. And I always told my buddies, one day I am going to have a house out here. And fortunately enough for me, back in 2002, I was able to purchase that house. And it's my prized possession. And it's something that I always dreamed of, and something I'm very, very proud to have attained.
All right, here's a good one. What's your favorite flavor of ice cream?
I love black cherry, number 1.
Okay.
And then Carvel vanilla, number 2.
All right. That's what I always say. Vanilla is the best flavor. It's not my favorite, but it's the best because you can do anything with vanilla.
Yes.
So that's where it's very versatile. So I enjoy that. All right. And then just to wrap up with you, can you just give us what your definition of courage is?
Well, courage is it's something that's built into you. You never know when it's going to show up or when you're going to need it. And there's different facets of courage. There's the physical courage of putting yourself in danger to help others. There's also the courage of, being who you are and being proud of that. There's also the courage of inspiring others to reach other heights within their life. And I think maybe one of the biggest aspects of my life was I was never going to fail. I was never going to give up. And regardless of, whatever the failure may have been, I was going to learn from it. And I do think that courage is something that is instilled within you from your parents or your mentors or somebody that you really do look up to, whether it be a school teacher, it could be a parent, could be an uncle, could be an aunt, could be somebody else that is on the national stage that may not know you personally, but you follow who they are and you realize the reason that they're there is because they put the hard work and effort into becoming a success.
There he is, Boomer Esiason, former Red Block Courage Award winner. Boomer and Gio on WFA and The Fan. Boomer Esiason Foundation, can you tell us a little bit about how people can get involved if they want to kind of support your cause?
Very easy. So it's Esiason.org, ESIASON.org. We have many programs right there on our homepage. And one of the programs that we're really proud of is our IVF program, because you have to realize that when Gunnar was born with cystic fibrosis, one of the side effects of cystic fibrosis is that men are born without a vas deferens. So they have a natural vasectomy. They cannot be the biological parents or father of a child unless they go through invasive procedure with needles. So in 2021, Gunnar and his fiance went through IVF. And right before their marriage, they handed me a photo of a sonogram of my grandson, Casper. It lifted me off the ground. I've never had a feeling like that in my life. I don't think I'll ever have another feeling like that. And it was a finish of 30 years of just really hard work, getting to a point where now all of a sudden my son wants to be a father himself, which is something that I had always hoped for and prayed for. And our foundation now gives out IVF grants to CF families. And we have 11 BEF babies that have been born. And we have, I think, another 6 or 7 on the way where we pay for all the IVF. It's a very expensive process. We have to go through a whole set of circumstances to make sure we get to the end product. And we make sure that the families are the right families and are going to raise their children with the great love that I see my son and daughter-in-law Darcy do with their 2 children. So I'm really, really proud of that. So, we're helping CF families, we're building families, and we're bringing so much joy to the world that if you want to impact that, you can at Esiason.org.
There you go. Appreciate it again, Boomer. Looking forward to hearing from you all football season, getting those hot takes in as well. Certainly looking forward to another, 17 weeks of regular season football going. So
here we go. You're right. Exactly, Fred. Thanks so much, man.
No problem. I appreciate it.
See you.